But telling the person, oh, I'm not going to even listen to you unless you express yourself using this very specific tool that requires that you not be actively upset when you're using it, that just may not work, right? And, I always encourage people when they're upset to just take a break, take a pause, get regulated before opening their mouth to speak. But we live in the real world, and sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes what comes out of the person that we love's mouth is shitty feedback. Welcome to Making Polyamory Work. I'm Libby Sinback, and I want to thank you for joining me today. I'm a queer polyamorous mom and a relationship transformation coach, and I'm here to help you if you're feeling stuck, if you're struggling, if you want your relationships to be more nourishing, more functional, more authentic, and full of love. On my show, I go really deep into what actually makes polyamorous relationships work, because relationships are at the core of our well-being as humans. I think love is why we're here and how we heal. This episode today is short and sweet, so I think we're just going to get right to it. But I wanted to tell you quickly that the relational non-monogamy circle that I opened in June is now open again. So if you are interested in finding out more about that, please check it out. Just go to relationalnonmonogamy.com. I am really excited that I have finally gotten the new cohort open, and we're going to be meeting on Sunday afternoons. So please check it out. Otherwise, let's just dive in, shall we? Several months ago, I released an episode called How to Give Kick-Ass Feedback, because we often have to give feedback in our relationships, and it can be really valuable to learn how to give it well so that you can be heard with good intentions and the feedback can be received and hopefully acted upon so that things can get better, because that's the hopeful intention of feedback, is to be seen and heard and to make things better. But what if you get really shitty feedback from someone else? Here's an example. I often have a problem being late to things, right? And I am working on this. I work very hard on this, and being on time is so important in so many aspects of my life. I've gotten pretty good at it, but that doesn't mean I don't fuck up from time to time. But, so an example of like good feedback around, me being late to something and someone's waiting on me and they're feeling grumpy about it and maybe a little hurt that I haven't prioritized them in the way that I might prefer to. They might say, hey, Libby, it hurts my feelings that you were late to meet me for dinner and I was waiting and it just felt really inconvenient, and I would really like it if you would just acknowledge that you were late and tell me that you're sorry and tell me that you care about me and that you didn't, et cetera, right? And, so that's an example of good feedback. That's actually using mostly the feedback wheel, right? You've told me how you feel. You've told me what it makes you think about the situation. You told me what I did and how I could make it better. But let's imagine that instead, I arrive and what I get is, you're so inconsiderate. I hate how you're always late. That's shitty feedback. That's not helpful. That's kind of an attack, right? I'm so inconsiderate. Well, my defensive brain, if I allowed that to take hold and respond to that statement, might say, I'm not inconsiderate. I'm just fucking got ADHD, man. How dare you? And, I might get in a little bit of a pissing match about it, and I might point out all the times they've been late and how they're inconsiderate too. I could go on, right, if I wanted to do that. And then, I hate how you're always late. Well, that's a generalization, right? So it's probably not true. And so I could also argue with that if I wanted to. I could tell the person how I'm not always late. I'm on time all the time. And, this is just one of those times when I drop the ball. And can you cut me some slack, please? Can you give me the benefit of the doubt? Can you imagine that going well? if a person's already upset with me, if I get all defensive in response to their shitty feedback. Or worse, I could just say, you didn't use the feedback wheel there, and therefore you aren't really expressing yourself in a way that's fair to me, and so I'm just not going to respond. I can tell you that won't go well. This is the way in which nonviolent communication is often weaponized, in fact. Because, the feedback wheel is kind of a twist on nonviolent communication, using your I statements, all that kind of stuff. And the way that it can be weaponized is, if someone is angry and upset and hurt and, they're not capable of regulating themselves enough to use a communication tool like the feedback wheel, the feedback that's going to come out might sound angry or irritated or attacking or otherwise unhelpful, but expressive of how they're feeling, right? So it might be hard to hear. But telling the person, I'm not going to even listen to you unless you express yourself using this very specific tool that requires that you not be actively upset when you're using it, that just may not work, right? And I always encourage people when they're upset to just take a break, take a pause, get regulated before opening their mouth to speak. But we live in the real world, and sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes what comes out of the person that we love's mouth is shitty feedback. It's them letting loose. And again, if they are saying something that is just super hurtful and you aren't in a place to respond well, then what you say is something along the lines of, I can tell that you're upset right now. I love you, but the way you're speaking to me is really going to make it hard for me to respond well to you. And I really want to hear you and because I care about you. So I'm just going to take a moment to myself and breathe because, I don't really want to be spoken to like that. And, if it's really, really unkind, if it's attacking, if it's insulting, you can get a little more firm with it and say, that's just not an acceptable way to speak to me right now. And I think that's an okay way to respond to someone you love, especially if they're being just really, like I said, outrightly disrespectful. However, you want to know the next level thing you can do when someone gives you shitty feedback? Are you ready? Turn it in your mind into good feedback. This is next level. It requires that you yourself are regulated, and it actually is you being the better person in this situation. And by better person, I don't mean that you're better than the other person. What I mean is in that moment, you're having a good day, and you are the one who has the capacity to be a hero in this moment. And so what you can do is instead of reacting to the person's attacking shitty feedback, instead you can step in and say, for example, in response to someone saying to me, you're so disrespectful to me, you're so inconsiderate, I hate that you're always late. I might say back, wow, I can tell that you feel really not considered by me showing up late. And I know that I do sometimes have a problem being late. I'm working really hard on it. But you're right that it is something that I struggle with sometimes. And I'm really sorry that I dropped the ball with you today. Boom. I just ignored the part of the feedback that was not true. I listened to the part of the feedback that was about feelings but came out as an attack. And I acknowledged what I did, and I acknowledged the pain. What would that be like? Who freaking does that? So this is my invitation to you. Instead of reacting to shitty feedback or telling the other person to give you better feedback, if you have the moment of generosity in your heart, bandwidth in your nervous system, and wherewithal in your brain, try this move. Try turning their shitty feedback into good feedback and see what happens. And let me know. I definitely want your feedback, shitty or not. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any thoughts about what I've said or want me to talk about something else or have a question you want me to answer, please reach out to me. You can find me on my website, libbysinback.com. You can email me at libby@libbysinback.com. You can also just connect to me on all the social media channels. If you love my podcasts, please share them with everyone, your friends, your networks, your Facebook groups, etc. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you want to find out how you can work with me more deeply and do more things together to grow your ability to make polyamory work, you can check out my website or just reach out to me. Thank you again for being with me today, and I will see you soon.